My name is Marlene Goldman, and I'm a professor in the Department of English, and I specialize in Canadian literature and health studies. I'm also a filmmaker. In 2021, I had the pleasure of being a Jackman Humanities Fellow, and during my 6-month fellowship, I drafted a book, and I also wrote, directed, and produced a short film. Today, I want to tell you about both projects, beginning with my book on shame, stigma, and empathy. Performing Shame draws on my expertise as a publicly engaged scholar of literature, medical humanities, and age and disability studies. The project evolved from my previous 4 books, the most recent of which, Forgotten, Narratives of Age-Related Dementia and Alzheimer's Disease in Canada, adopts an interdisciplinary medical humanities approach to trace the evolution of dementia and Alzheimer's as disease concepts. Having explored the shame and stigma that attend cognitive decline, as well as attempts to foster empathy for people with dementia in both traditional and arts-based research, I was well positioned to address more broadly the workings of shame and its capacity to relegate a variety of individuals and groups to a devalued existence, or worse, social death. A quick Google search pairing the terms shame and social media elicits more than 129 million results. Political and social shaming are both amplified and anonymized by social media, and Western society is increasingly becoming a cancel culture. Politicians and the public rely on shame to cancel, dismiss, discredit perceived opponents. But the harm done by shaming in these and many other contexts has only recently begun to be recognized by clinicians and medical educators. Writers and other artists, however, have long documented shame's impact. My book, Performing Shame, shows how simulations of shame by North American writers, artists, and clinicians in many cases can help to empower people to resist shame's withering influence. Shame represents a major threat to well-being, and it increases our vulnerability to illness. It blocks access to medical care and undermines physical and mental health and healing. As Irving Goffman, the sociologist, explains in his book Stigma, Notes on the Management of a Spoiled Identity, both shame and stigma are life-threatening since, as he says, by definition, we believe the person with a stigma is not quite human. On this assumption, we exercise varieties of discrimination through which we effectively, if often unthinkingly, reduce his life chances. Reflecting on the tragic decision of patients with AIDS to commit suicide, Dr. Abraham Vergas wrote that what killed them was actually the burden of secrecy and shame associated with the disease, and not the disease itself. Performing Shame begins with readings of Alice Munro's short stories. She was tremendously interested in the impact of disability and the connection between disability and shame. Her mother coped with Parkinson's disease, and as Munro has said, that was the central material of her life. It then moves to the works of graphic novelist Alison Bechdel, and kind of focuses on her treatment of her father, who was a closeted homosexual, and she, in her text, Fun Home, suggests that he killed himself because of the burden of shame. In the 4th chapter, I look at the political activists, the street theater of the Raging Grannies, initially a Victoria-based group of older women. They were extremely tired of being sidelined owing to their gender and their age, and so they broke off from the political organizations that they were involved with, and then donned ridiculous clown costumes and basically just confronted audiences in the street with their lively songs and political messages. And the final 2 chapters shift from what we might think of the aesthetic realm of performance to the clinical realm. And one of the chapters looks at the introduction in the 1960s of simulated patients or standardized patients. And these were actors and sometimes non-actors hired to take the place of real patients so that students could learn, medical students could learn without being shamed themselves, and also without humiliating and repeating procedures on very ill patients. So this was a procedure that was kind of locating performance in two registers. One, it was teaching doctors to perform bedside manner and also to perform clinical skills without harming or shaming real patients, and as I said, or themselves. And the final chapter, which I was so excited to write, is based on the introduction and innovation by Click Health, a transnational health, medical health technology firm located in Toronto. They devised what they called a teleempathy device, and it was all over the papers several years ago. And what the device does is it straps on your arm and simulates the tremors associated with Parkinson's disease. And they claimed that it enhanced clinicians' empathy for their patients. And I wanted to find out if that was the case. So I partnered with Click Health and conducted a study of the device. And so the final chapter looks at the results of that study and the somewhat problematic view that kind of performing a symptom of an illness in isolation, in fact, from the person with the illness can foster empathy. That idea really troubled me and also troubles many, many disability scholars who are really, really concerned about anything that purports to, in their words, make you a crip for the day. So I came into that work and the partnership with Click Health with some really strong concerns that were to some extent borne out by the performance of that empathy device. So those are the kind of case studies for the book, and I'm really, really pleased that in the 6-month period I was able to draft an entire text, and it needs a lot of work. I am not ashamed of it, but it needs a lot of work. So as I said earlier, I kind of wear two hats. I'm a scholar and I'm also a filmmaker. And I don't see that as a tension. I see it definitely as complementary. So I'm a Canadian literature professor and I teach short stories. And my work as a filmmaker allows me to really deeply engage and interpret brilliant Canadian short stories. And it also lets me share my research on shame and stigma and disability more broadly. So in 2015, I chose to adapt the story called In Sight of the Lake by Alice Munro, and I was so chuffed that she gave me permission to adapt the story. It's a first-person account of what it's like to live with deep dementia, and I've never read anything like it. So the end result is a short film, 15 minutes, entitled Piano Lesson, and it really does, I hope, offer a radically person-centered portrayal of dementia. And I was emboldened by the success of Piano Lessons, and I approached Margaret Atwood next, and I wanted to film her short story Torching the Dusties, which includes a really visceral sort of portrayal of intergenerational warfare. It's got residents at a nursing home called Ambrosia Manor, and the protagonist has very low or no vision, which is often accompanied by another challenge called Charles Bonnet syndrome. You typically will see hallucinations because your optic nerve is bored. Sorry, I'm nerding out, but it was the first portrayal I'd ever seen of Charles Bonnet syndrome. And it put it in the context of an us against them, where vigilantes were burning down nursing homes because they're part of a movement called Our Turn, and they wear baby-faced masks and just burn down these residences. As they say, it's time to torch the dusties. I had no idea that COVID was going to jump into our lives, and so this kind of sense of whose lives are expendable was, was always prescient, and it was really, really scary to look back and realize she'd kind of focused on nursing homes as extraordinarily vulnerable sites. My most recent film is a very different portrayal of a disability. It focuses on the experience of a Lao refugee and his family. And in this case, the protagonist, Raymond, is a professional boxer, but he sustains a brain injury. He was a child fighter in the refugee camp in Thailand. So just repeated fights really made him vulnerable to brain injury. And so when he's unable to fight, his sister Dara kind of comes in and puts him to work in her nail salon. And the film really looks at these two realms of violence. One is overt, the masculine realm of violence, which is a boxing ring, but the covert realm of violence, and this is, have to celebrate the writer here. She's a brilliant and Giller Prize winning writer, Suvankam Themavongsa. She herself is a Lao refugee who came to Canada with her family, but what she got interested in was the health impacts of working in nail salons and what the dust and the chemicals do to women's bodies. So you get persistent coughs, lung illness, lung disease, and also in some cases from the chemicals, women were risking miscarriage. So you've got this boxer kind of thinking he's going to waltz into this realm, and he realizes how challenging it is. Adding to that challenge is basically the fight or struggle that he has with his sister, who is desperate to keep him safe, but her desire to control Raymond verges really on the pathological. And ultimately, I won't tell you how this fight ends, but he really has to hold his ground against his most intimate and beloved opponent. So that was what I was doing while I was on my 6-month leave. I managed to write. We shot during COVID, and it's out. And I'm going to just offer you the chance to view all of the films if you like. And certainly we'll show you the trailers, because I know that a picture is worth, as they say, 1,000 words, and I bet you've heard 1,000 from me. So I really do hope that you have a look at the work and that it inspires you to do whatever it is that really calls to you as a scholar and perhaps also as a maker. Thanks so much for your time.